So you all know Stardust. I am actually just approaching 3 years of ownership with this car, as exciting as that is. Except that's not what today's video is about. And it's because I bought another car, not to replace this actually, but actually to complement it. And this is today where I'll admit that I am by far the single biggest hypocrite ever. Why's that? Well, let me show you. Because this is my new car! A crossover! And why does buying a crossover make me a hypocrite? Well, it's because if you watch a few videos on this channel, you might know that I really despise these things. I legitimately do. So, okay, if I really despise these things that much, why the hell did I buy one? Comes down to this isn't actually the vehicle I wanted in the first place, but it came down to the one thing I'm sure everybody would understand. Money. So I had actually wanted to buy a truck. And the reason why I wanted to buy a truck is because I needed a vehicle with better winter performance. When I had bought Stardust, that was actually when we went into the El Nino period for our winters. What is that? Well, it's basically where our winters are a slight tad warmer than typical. And as a result, we didn't get as much snowfall, and our average days were actually warmer than unusual. In fact, Christmas of 2024, I should tell you, was actually a brown Christmas, which you guys might be very aware or accustomed to those types of Christmases. Not here in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. We always have a white Christmas, and Christmas of 2024 was not that. So why do I bring this up? Well, it's because at the time, while this was going on, I was daily driving Stardust, my 2019 Buick LaCrosse hybrid sedan, in the winter. I drive that car everywhere. I still drive that car even to this day. But last year, the winter of between 2025 and 2026, that was when our normal winter started to kick back, and that enabled me to realize a few problems with Stardust. And I probably should have realized these to be legit problems sooner, but that winter just totally exacerbated it. First problem with Stardust is her ground clearance. She only has like not even 5 inches of ground clearance, and when it snows here, we tend to get more than 4 inches at a time. So that means, yes, I am always sledding in that car, especially when the roads are not plowed. That's not particularly fun. But the other problem is because Stardust is a front-wheel drive vehicle, which typically isn't a problem for me, but the hybrid component is actually throwing me for a loop because due to the batteries being in the back, in the trunk, that's taking weight off of the front wheels, which is a bad thing for a front-wheel drive vehicle in the winter time. You want as much weight on those front wheels as possible for the best traction you can get. So despite that, I love Stardust for everything else. Those 2 disadvantages were causing me a bit of a problem driving in the winter. And despite that, my parents claimed that if I ever had any problems getting out of the drive in the winter, then I should be able to borrow their Yukon. That never happened because my sister kept stealing it from me. In fairness, she needed it more than me. So I clearly needed a winter vehicle. And yes, I know, I bought it in April. I'm filming this video a little late actually, but I bought this car in April actually. I'll explain why I bought it this early. But nonetheless, I needed a better winter vehicle no matter what. And I had initially wanted to get a truck because, in my opinion, that is the best vehicle you can get to complement a sedan. You got a sedan that's fun to drive, that's low to the ground, and very, very fuel efficient. And then you got the pickup truck with the ground clearance and the 4-wheel drive and the crap hauling capabilities. To me, that is a great complement to a sedan. So why did I buy a crossover instead of a truck? Because at least around here, if you want a truck for the amount of money I paid for this thing, it's going to be a completely rusted out shitbox that needs a severe engine work and is totally not worth it. Compared to this thing, I spent $4,000 on this, and aside from it came with a sport exhaust, plus it's got some UP rust, it's actually pretty solid. So that's why I ended up buying the crossover. Despite that, I don't really like these things. But hey, in the meantime, I guess I can make some content explaining why I don't like crossovers, since now I own one and I can show you. But that's not going to be in this video today. Today, I actually want to give you a tour of this crossover, show you how it drives, and yeah, we'll take it from there. So, what did I actually buy? Because I've been calling this a crossover so far, but what actually is this? Let me give it a proper introduction. This is my new to me 2013 GMC Terrain SLT2. Bit of a long name, but for the most part, it's a GMC Terrain. Of course, if I had to get a crossover, I mean, if you watch some of the other videos on this channel, you might know I am fairly familiar with GMC Terrains. I've had 4 of them as loaner cars when Stardust was in the shop, and I reviewed actually the latest GMC Terrain Denali, as cool as that is. So, of course, if I've spent so much time in GMC Terrains, might as well get one for myself. And in terms of what's under the hood of this particular GMC Terrain, happened to have actually surprised me, not gonna lie. This is actually the least efficient GMC Terrain you can get. Why? Because it's got a V6, baby. Every other Terrain after this only has a 4-cylinder of some kind, be it gas, or actually in the previous generation Terrain, it actually offered a diesel for a time. But this is the only generation Terrain, the original generation, that you can get with a V6 engine. So it's GM's 3.6 liter V6, and it's mated to a 6-speed automatic transmission that is also putting power out to all 4 of my wheels. That was the big thing that really sold me on this car. I wanted all-wheel drive, which this has, and when I saw the V6, I figured, all right, this will be a good complement to Stardust. I got Stardust, the efficient car, and this, the gas hog. That should be pretty good in winter. You can get this with a 4-cylinder, and I've driven that powertrain before. The old 4-cylinders in this generation of GM compact crossovers, that was actually a healthy powertrain. Not like what they put in the latest Terrains and Equinoxes. But yeah, that's what's under the hood. And to give you guys a bit of a deeper look at the powertrain specs available for the first generation GMC Terrain, I decided to look up both the specs for both engines. Starting off with our base engine option, we have a 2.4 liter inline 4-cylinder engine that produces 182 horsepower and 172 pound-feet of torque. It's mated to a 6-speed automatic transmission and can be paired with either the front only or all 4 wheels. In other words, front-wheel drive and all-wheel drive. And for fuel economies for each, the front-wheel drive gets 22 city, 32 highway, and 26 combined, which is a really excellent fuel economy for a vehicle of this size, by the way. And just, you know, those are EPA estimates. The all-wheel drive variant of this gets a little worse fuel economy at 20 city, 29 highway, and 23 combined. Again, EPA numbers. And believe it or not, as crazy as it sounds, yes, you can get a tow hitch paired with this engine, and the max towing capability happens to be 1,500 pounds. I'd recommend just reserving the tow hitch for just a bike rack, and that's it. But my car has the upgraded powertrain from that with the 3.6 liter V6 that produces 301 horsepower and 272 pound-feet of torque. It's mated to the exact same 6-speed automatic transmission and can be paired with either front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. All-wheel drive is actually not standard at all on any trim level of the first generation GMC Terrain, I should have you note. And fuel economies for that are obviously going to be worse, with the front-wheel drive getting you 17 miles per gallon city, 24 highway, and 19 combined, according to the EPA. And my car, the all-wheel drive variant, gets an even worse at 16 miles to the gallon in the city, 23 on the highway, and 18 combined. Ouch! The V6, however, does give you a towing capacity upgrade, probably because it actually has enough power to do so. Apparently, if you get the V6, you can get a towing increase all the way up to 3,500 pounds. But even still, I'd recommend just only using the tow hitch for a bike rack or something like that. I really wouldn't recommend trailering with this vehicle at all. In terms of some basic options that my car has, because I never really went over some options that was available on my particular trim. Obviously, I have the 3.6 liter V6 with all all-wheel drive. I have a power trunk. I have a sunroof. I have the navigation system. I have UP rust and sport exhaust, aka the exhaust pipe rusted loose, and now the car sounds pretty loud. The joys of buying a car from Michigan's Upper Peninsula. So, okay, jokes aside, this is basically a fully loaded GMC Terrain SLT. It's not the Denali. You can get a Denali version of one of these, but if I'm being honest, all the Denali really adds is just some wood to the interior and then a few safety systems, like a forward collision warning and lane departure alert. Although I'll have you note, none of those systems are actually active. They are only passive systems. Nothing really too much to add to the Denali other than the wood decorations in a few spots. And if I'm being honest, it's really not that much more premium. I consider my car fully loaded and I paid $4,000 for this car. That is nothing to scoff at. Without further ado, let's actually get back to the rest of the video. So some of you might wonder, why a Terrain specifically instead of an Equinox? Because, I mean, I did buy this looking to save some money on a vehicle with all-wheel drive, so why not get an Equinox? Because literally everyone and their mom and grandma has an Equinox. The GMC equivalent to that, the Terrain, not as common, and I want to make sure that I can find my car in a parking lot. And so because the Terrain is less common, part of the reason why I went with the Terrain specifically over the Equinox. I thought about going the Cadillac route, then we're getting a little too high in my price point, and then insurance just jacks itself up because then you got to add luxury taxes on things. Not fun. But in terms of the styling, there's so much that is unique to this that makes it so easy to find in a parking lot. And it's that this is a box on wheels. It is box themed everywhere. The whole front end looks like a box. The whole rear looks like a box. The headlights are a box. The grill's a box. Everything about this is a giant box. So it's really easy to distinguish a Terrain from most other crossovers, at least this generation. In terms of the headlights though, the headlights are not particularly impressive, I should point out, being that it's literally all halogen everything. Although I should actually note, there was a funny recall on this generation GMC Terrain where apparently GM didn't design the headlights quite right and they were aimed a little bit too high, blinding other drivers. So some of them will actually have a light diffuser stuck onto the headlights just to deal with that problem. Mine doesn't have that, so I hope I don't get pulled over. In terms of sizing of this car, one of the reasons why I chose the Terrain over any other crossover is because I don't need a big one. I really don't need a big crossover. I just need something with ground clearance and all-wheel drive. And well, this thing certainly has ground clearance, all 6.9 inches of it. You guys thought I was going to say 6. The funny thing with this particular generation Terrain is, compared to other crossovers at its time, this was actually one of the larger ones, and yet now it feels really short as of today, because that's how much cars have grown. Unfortunately though, you find me here on the passenger side to describe one disappointment that I have with this particular generation of GMC Terrain. Why is the fuel door on the passenger side? Now, thankfully, GM has actually learned from this mistake, and future generations of GMC Terrain have removed the gas port from the passenger side and put it on the driver's side, the correct side. But I don't have those newer generations with the fuel door on the correct side, so I'm stuck with it being on the wrong side of the car. And then we come to the rear of the vehicle, where I still have to do my complaining, because unfortunately, this is something that GM still hasn't learned from. The taillights. Because I have my little criteria on how taillights should be designed, and GM has failed both of them once again. First up, the turn signals are blinking red, not amber. They're supposed to be blinking amber. Why are they not blinking amber, GMC? And the second problem, the turn signals also happen to be the same bulbs as the brake lights. They should be separate bulbs. Still haven't learned this. I don't know why GM struggles with taillights so much. I'd also like to point out, I don't know if this is a thing about all GMC Terrains, but I would like to point out that the reverse lights are also incredibly dim. So I guess I need to swap those bulbs out at some point. Although, something I would like to point out, to my surprise, despite that this is not the top of the line Denali, when this feature was pretty much only common on the highest end of GM's products, this Terrain has a power liftgate. Now, there's really not all that much that's special about this cargo area since we're back here, other than at its time, this is actually one of the more spacious cargo areas. And funny enough, the space is expandable, not only by folding the seats down, but if you still need your back seat up, you can actually slide the back seat forward a little bit to give yourself a little more cargo room. Given how much crap I put in my vehicles, I don't see this ever being taken advantage of, but thought I'd just point that out. Nonetheless, what do we have under here on the floor? We've got a spare tire and a jack, which is nice to see. The tire is also a full-size tire. And then just climbing in here, let's do a quick scale test. I am 5'8" for reference. And this is a bit of an odd thing with this particular generation of the Equinox/Terrain. They both have basically the same cargo area. The cargo area is not particularly wide, so I hope you don't have any wide boxes. And the reason for that is because right by my feet is the subwoofer for the sound system, and right behind my back is, I'm not entirely sure if I'm being honest. But yeah, nonetheless, the cargo area is not particularly wide. The height, though, is fairly decent. Got plenty of headroom, as long as I'm struggling to get my back up. Okay, I could use a little more headroom, but it's a fine cargo area, especially for this type of class of vehicle. And from what I hear, it's actually larger than average, so take that W. Nonetheless, if you do have more crap, you can always fold the seats down. There's no levers in close proximity to be able to do it from back here. You'll probably most likely end up having to come up front. But once you fold the seat down, it is not flat at all. Yeah, this is quite the angle. Quite the angle. In terms of other features back here, illumination. Ooh, there's a couple coat hooks right here. And there's a few pockets within these side bulges right here to store some items. So, in terms of the cargo area, not the biggest in the world, but you know what? It's fine. Now, I will have you know that no, this is not exactly the nicest example of a GMC Terrain. Again, it's got rust spots all over the place, some weird stuff going on there, and I wish I could say that the interior was cleaned. It's not really cleaned all that well. I did my best to vacuum it out and do something, but I am not a professional car detailer, so my apologies if it disgusts you, but it's my car, it's not yours. Deal with it. So, nonetheless, let's actually get into it. So, here is the key to the car. It's GMC's typical key fob for the time. Well, actually no, GMC really didn't use this design fob that much. Other GM products used it, but I think GMC only used this fob design purely for the Terrain of this generation. Everything else had a different design from GM. Nonetheless, it's got remote start, which is handy for the winter time, and the power trunk button is there. And this also happens to be their switchblade key, allowing you to store this easier. So because it's a switchblade key, you might realize, no, this does not have any cool push button tricks to lock and unlock the door. So it's just a standard, you get in the car, you awkwardly try to, awkwardly try to get in, because I'm sure I struggle to get in these crossovers a lot. And then you take out your key, you flip open the switchblade, stick it in, and she fires right up. So my phone apparently does not have as much energy left as I was hoping for, so I guess I really got to give you the fastest rundown in here as possible. Thankfully, this is not too feature heavy of a vehicle to give you a tour of, so as always, I start off with the materials in the car. Not particularly the nicest in the world. This is a hard plastic. You might think it's soft, but nope, it is a hard plastic. You get some leather padding right here, which is nice, and all of these chrome shiny things, it's all plastic. There's no aluminum in this vehicle at all. And I really wish this armrest had leather just like this right here. This is something that drives me nuts about certain GM products. They put the soft stuff on the side of the armrest, but not where your elbow actually rests. What were they thinking? You'll find your window controls here. I've already done the window test. They are all auto down, but none of these windows are automatic up. Not even the driver's window is automatic up. You gotta hold it. You'll also find your power mirror controls, your child window lock, so this will lock out the rear windows. You'll find a door lock button here. This is your interior dimmer switch. They placed it right here all by its lone self, just a simple climate vent. And in terms of the rest of the materials in the car, well, it's more plastics. Hard plastic, even more hard plastics. There's really not a lot of nice materials in this car, but I wasn't looking for a luxury car. I was looking for something that can get through snow. It's not the nicest in terms of interior quality. This is on the cheaper end. There is a Denali version of this Terrain, believe it or not. They're just incredibly uncommon. The Denali will put some wood accents in, like on the doors and on the shifter, even a wood accent here on the steering wheel, from what I believe. I was kind of hoping I could pick up a Denali version of one of these, except that wasn't really within my budget, and it's hard to find one specifically the way I wanted it. So nonetheless, this works. It's just fine. The SLT is actually pretty nice, and I like how with the SLT they give you a leather portion up here, because right where this is where you'll actually find the wood, and they already didn't give you a lot of leather to begin with in the first place. So I actually like that the wood is not here, so my elbow still has something soft to brush up against. But nonetheless, that's general material quality. Let's come to the steering wheel here, where it is nicely leather wrapped. Right here you'll find your cruise control settings, and if you have the top end Denali, you'll find your safety systems right there as well. And then we also have not actually, you might think this is for that screen right there. No, it's not. This is not for that screen. This is for your phone controls / your mute button as well. This is for your radio sources. I initially thought that was scroll for that. No, it is not. This is your seek / radio thing. So not for that. And this is your stereo volume. In terms of your stocks, these are typical GM stock for the era, and they're cheap, but they work. Automatic headlights, of course. This vehicle also has fog lights, so that's where you'll find all of your lighting controls here, minus the lonely dimmer switch. The lonely dimmer switch is still right there. And then you'll also have your wiper stock, which also has the controls for your rear wiper as well. As for your gauge cluster, it's relatively simple. There's nothing too much to look at. Find your tachometer here. I have no idea where redline is in this, although I have gotten this up to 7,000 RPM. I hope that it's relatively high. Your speedometer is right there, although of course you can get a digital readout on your screen. Your coolant temp, along with your fuel gauge as well. And in terms of your center screen here, how do you control it? Because it's not through this, like I thought. You actually control it via these 4 buttons right here. That is how you cycle through your different screens on here. So you can see things like your trip computer, 2 different ones. Fuel range, this is estimating 281 miles. That's better than Red Fox, actually. Average fuel economy sucks in this thing, especially because I'm idling right now. I guess this is current MPG. Yeah, this is not good for fuel economy, but it works. Average vehicle speed, I don't know when that's last been reset. You got a built-in timer, navigation for some reason, and a blank screen if you want absolutely nothing other than your odometer. And then what do we have in here for the menu? Oh yeah, you can change things like, okay, I might want to air up those tires. That's a bit low, so that's good to know. You'll find some different vehicle stats in here, like oil and tires, and what units it's measuring your speed in and such. Then I guess we'll move on to interior storage, where there's nothing really too much to be impressed with, other than why are there so many coins and whose Twix wrapper is that? Because I have not eaten in this car. Guess I gotta do a better job of cleaning it up. But nonetheless, your center console, it's very narrow, but it's incredibly deep. And you'll also find a USB port and an audio jack underneath that. You'll find a little more storage up here, which is handy for coins. Cup holders right here, and then another big storage bin right here for phones and such. There is no wireless charger. That was not invented yet in 2013. So the storage is okay. It's nothing to write home about, and that's primarily because this is just using a traditional gear lever. So, pull it all the way back for drive. You have a manual mode where you can shift through all 6 of your gears with these buttons right here. And when you throw her into reverse, crazy enough, you do have a very poor resolution backup camera with no trajectory lines. Moving up, time to get to the radio controls. You'll find your CD player right here. Yes, this has a CD player. And then up here is your climate controls. It is a single zone automatic climate setup only. You cannot get a dual zone setup at all. But you'll find all of your climate stuff right here. Auto, AC, power, your zones you actually cycle through on here. And then you also have 3-stage heated seats. Much appreciated in the wintertime. Up above that, you bizarrely, despite that you have locking control buttons right here, they bizarrely decided to add a second set right here on the dash panel. I am dead serious. That is what the buttons do. Not sure why they needed the redundancy, but okay. You'll find your hazards button here, and this is how you engage your child locks. And then I guess we finally come to the complication of the infotainment system. If you're curious on what the audio system sounds like, because that's typically something I do, I'll have to give that to you in a separate clip. So that's with Bluetooth. Bluetooth on these older cars tends to sound a bit worse. Let me see if I can actually get this to play through USB specifically. Much better. With the USB, at least. It's still not the greatest thing in the world. It's just a simple Pioneer sound system. But you know what? It's not horrible. But I still think Stardust has a much better sound system than this car. But right now, we have to discuss the main infotainment system because, oh my goodness, this thing is a hassle to get through. So, nonetheless, this is GM's early attempt at making an infotainment system. This is the original GMC IntelliLink. So, within this right here, you'll find your now playing selection with different radio presets and all that. That's the first thing you come up. But if I'm being honest, this general home screen layout right here, for the most part, is just radio stuff. This is where you'll find all of your radio sources, like for example, FM, AM, Bluetooth, USB for iPod and such. So this home screen isn't like a typical infotainment system home screen. This is just purely radio sources, and baked into this screen where you can select your music source. You can also select various other things like navigation. Yes, this vehicle actually has navigation. I am not going to show you that to you right now because I am currently at home and I am not doxing myself. But it has things like navigation, and to my surprise, believe it or not, you can watch movies in this car and view pictures apparently. Now the cool thing with this is that you actually have this dial here. If you can't reach the touchscreen, or because honestly the touchscreen is pretty far away to touch, they do give you this knob here to help you scroll through and control the system, along with the many buttons right here in this cluster. So they've actually divided this up into 4 different sections, despite that it might look like 2 initially. So in terms of navigating throughout the infotainment system, these 4 buttons right here are just for navigating the infotainment system / configuring it. So home, back, info, and your settings. This is config, just means settings for the most part. You'll find your audio controls right here in this cluster for your different sources, and I guess this would pull up different presets along with your seat toggles. This cluster down here is purely for the navigation system, and then these are a few extra buttons for phone, your CD eject, and I guess this will pull up the equalizer as well. It is a very bizarre infotainment system to get through, and it's probably worth making a whole separate video on it because we've come such a long way when it comes to infotainment technology. But at some point I'll make a video on that, but right now I really need to move this video along. Coming up here we have our typical GM OnStar as usual with a standard mirror, and then we've got a bunch of stuff up here. This ceiling is filled with stuff. So these are your HomeLink universal remotes. This is your dome light controls, and then this vehicle is also equipped with the sunroof. I typically keep the shade open, but I never open the glass, primarily because sunroofs tend to have a tendency to break, so I leave it shut. And then also, this is where you'll find the controls for your power trunk. So you can, believe it or not, just have it off. You don't have to use the power functionality. And if you're in a low garage or you're just short and you have a hard time reaching it, you can set the lift gate to only open to 3/4 of its height, and then obviously you have a maximum height. In terms of our sun visors, we have illumination with a mirror. We detach and we extend. And the glove box, just a standard glove box. Unfortunately, Evil Twin did not decide to film with me because he's just that much of a brat, but it's also because I may or may not have warned him that the back seat is a little disgusting. I did my best to clean it, but my goodness, does it still need some work. Nonetheless, getting in, stepping height is still fairly awkward for me because this seat is actually kind of high up for some bizarre reason. And in terms of what we have for a back seat, well, that's my driving position, and I've got a crap ton of room. Now, granted, this is with the back seat slid all the way back. I'll remind you that this back seat does actually slide forward and back to exchange a space between your passenger compartment and your cargo compartment back there. But nonetheless, I got a crap ton of space. And in terms of amenities, there are really not a lot of amenities back here, other than I got a built-in cup holder right here with some more junk and trash that I still have to clean up. My goodness. Again, your window is automatic down, which is actually really nice. Materials are still not that great. This is hard plastic, and unfortunately, unlike the front seats where it has the leather padding right there, it's all straight plastic. We do have some mat pockets, which are nice. We got a 12-volt outlet, although I still personally would prefer to see USB ports. Especially, come on, this was when smartphones were actually getting pretty darn popular, so I'm a bit disappointed. We do have a center armrest with cup holders, and that's pretty much all there is to report back here. Really nothing special. Let's do a little acceleration and see what happens. 7,000 RPM. Woo! Okay, yeah. This V6 got some punch to it, especially paired with all-wheel drive. Holy shit, this thing's fast. Especially for a little crossover. So I've been complaining so much about how the majority of GMC Terrains out there, particularly the newer ones, they just feel underpowered. For the post-refresh second-gen GMC Terrain, they got rid of all 4-cylinder options except this piddly 1.5 liter one that they're still using to this day, and it just does not produce enough power for the vehicle, and it's absolutely infuriating to me. It is a nice change to actually have the V6 in a GMC Terrain for once and actually have proper power I can put to the wheels. And in terms of passing power, let's see what this has for passing power. Wow, she downshifts fast. So this thing actually has a surprising amount of performance packed into it. And I mean surprising. I expected this to be not particularly great, even with the V6, because for whatever reason, GM just doesn't really pack a lot of performance in their smaller offerings these days. But this thing, powertrain-wise, it feels strong. The transmission shifts nice and quick, and it does its best to keep the engine in its power band when you want to get going. Now, that obviously results in not particularly great fuel economy given the powertrain setup that we have. But you know what? That's okay. If you want a more fuel-efficient setup, that option does exist with the 4-cylinder, and you can get the 4-cylinder on all of these. And I actually have driven that 2.4-liter 4-cylinder engine, and it is actually, unlike the 1.5-liter that the new ones come with today, that engine is actually adequate for this vehicle. So you'll get much better fuel economy with that setup, along with the, well, better power output than the newest Terrains and Equinoxes, as bizarre as that is. And I suppose now that we're actually on the road and away from the house, here's what the navigation looks like. And I'm going to quickly test stopping performance right now. Woo! Brakes are good, but I do have to make sure I don't wear out those tires. Those are winter tires that we have right now, and I really don't want to bald spot them. And now we're about to take this vehicle on its weakest part of the drive, where it will be in the twisties, because this vehicle is not particularly friendly when it comes to corners. So I'll give it my best, but I'll let you guys know off the bat. I've been driving this for the past few weeks. She's a little tippy. So, all right, let's send her into a corner and see what happens. Oh yeah, she does not like that. Not like that at all. No. So Stardust, I can typically do that corner at 55. I had to back it down to at least 50, and this corner's also bad too. The rest get a little easier, but those are the particularly nasty ones. But yeah, in general, Stardust, I can fly through these corners at 60 miles an hour. Not this. I'm already uncomfortable doing 55. That is one of the many downsides to crossovers. They just don't handle as well as sedans, and that is one of the many reasons, oh geez, why I prefer sedans over these types of vehicles. They're lower to the ground, their centers of gravity are lower, and that makes them so much better for cornering. But on the other hand, I mean, it's fine. The driving experience itself is actually fine. It's not fun because you can't take this into corners. The only fun you can get out of this is just utilizing the V6 and acceleration. But other than that, this is not particularly spectacular, and it won't blow your mind away. In terms of engine braking capabilities, because I can get manual control over it, it's not the best engine braking out there when you're trying to slow yourself going down steep grades of hills, but it's better than nothing. It at least actually has it. Most modern cars these days, it seems like they're getting rid of the engine braking functionality. Though that might have something to do with they're putting these tiny engines in there, and they just can't handle trying to stop the weight of these massive oversized vehicles. But the V6 in this, it shouldn't have any problems slowing down this small GMC's smallest crossover. The powertrain is certainly healthy. It is very well suited for this car. Very well suited. Maybe even a little excessive. I might dare say it might even be just a little excessive, but it is certainly healthy, and it allows me to zip through town pretty nicely if you can ignore the fact that this does not do well in corners at all. But nonetheless, there's a few other things that I wanted to talk about in terms of the driving experience. For one, I want to talk about visibility. I was actually pretty shocked at how well I can see out of this vehicle. Sideways visibility is excellent. I can see every car in the lane right beside me. I am very short of blind spots in this car. My biggest blind spot is just really the hood. The hood is a lot taller, therefore it's a lot harder to see out the front of this thing. But even then, I've been in worse vehicles with even worse visibility. Visibility has gotten so much worse in the GMC terrain over time. I'm actually very surprised at how easily I can see out of this. And I actually have a seat to the floor for the reference. I may be short at 5'8", but I have the seat to the floor, as that's what I prefer to drive. I prefer to drive in as low of a driving position as possible. And I'm still not particularly a fan of even where the seat is at height-wise to the road. I still would want the seat to go lower, but I've dealt with worse. I always hate it when I have to raise the seat so high just so I can see over the dash, but I'm not doing that in this case. I've got the seat all the way to the floor, and my visibility, to my surprise, has been very good. I find it really interesting though how the transmission really holds on to those lower gears and keeps the V6 in its power band, because on the V6 by itself, it's got plenty of power. I don't remember what the horsepower figures are off the top of my head, but the numbers by the engine alone are actually good enough. So I'm a bit surprised that the transmission is holding on as long as it is. But it does result in the engine staying in its power band for longer and really giving you that acceleration. Even just driving here in downtown Houghton, the city, the visibility is just, it's impressive. I never have any problems seeing cars right beside me. Ooh, Rivian R1T! Oh, I love spotting those! Rivian R1T, which color? Which color? Oh, is that forest green? It was either forest green or launch green. I couldn't tell. It was a green one. Oh, that's such a cool sight. Sorry, I still love electric cars, which I'll have to save this segment for at the end of the video. But here is a particular stretch of unpaved road coming up, actually, where we'll really get to test out the suspension. And it's smooth, it feels nice, but the exhaust pipe being loose and disconnected, it rattles around so much back there. So that is one repair that I'm gonna have to make. I'm pretty sure it was a rust problem, so I might just replace the whole exhaust system. Oof, big bumps. Here's our unpaved section. Oh, it looks like they graded it recently. Yeah, this is smoother than typical. Okay, that blows that test. But yeah, the suspension's good anyways. It's there's nothing to complain about. The problem is just the exhaust pipe's loose, and I gotta get that reattached. But overall, from a driving dynamic standpoint, I actually think this terrain drives the best out of all terrains, and this is the first generation terrain. Every generation of terrain after this, I'd argue, has gotten worse in terms of driving dynamics. This, believe it or not, really does seem to be the best from a driving dynamic standpoint. Now, ultimately, it's still a crossover, and I don't prefer a crossover, but I mean, I was planning on getting a truck, and trucks are not known for their driving dynamics either. And so I can't really complain too much. So yeah, honestly, I genuinely think the first generation GMC terrain drives the best out of all GMC terrains ever. And so yes, I am a hypocrite because I've been despising these types of vehicles for the longest time, and yet I'm now the owner of one. I don't want to say the proud owner of one because, again, I still would have preferred buying a truck, but I just can't afford a truck with how much they want for them that's actually in decent condition that I can actually use. This car, even though, yes, it is rusted out, it's got UP rust, and the exhaust pipe still needs a bit of reattachment. With the price that I paid for this car, $4,000, I am very shocked at the amount of value and the actual deal I got on this, because genuinely the biggest flaws with this car right now, one of them is completely solvable. I just have to do the repair at some point. The exhaust pipe being loose, and just a bunch of rusted out and bits of the body is being rusted out. But ultimately, I will have you guys know that I do not plan on keeping this car for that long. I just plan on holding on to this until I actually can afford a proper truck. But in the meantime, I need something that will do well in the winter. And Stardust, as much as I love driving that car and as much as I love everything else about her, she is not good for winter driving when the blizzards come in. And this is the vehicle that will help me get through that. So I own a crossover now, despite how much I dunk on these things. But honestly, sedans are still the best, and I still drive Stardust more than I drive this. I'm probably not going to end up driving this vehicle that much, especially throughout the summer. I only plan on taking this when I have to get Stardust fixed, which there's still a repair that I've been meaning to make this video for so long. I've been saying this for over how many months now, but I have a problem that I need to address with Stardust, but that requires some downtime, and now I have a daily driver that I can still take to work while Stardust is still getting fixed. That works, even though this thing really is a bit of a gas hog, and with gas prices these days, it's just not that great. But nonetheless, I still plan on driving Stardust way more than I plan on driving this. I only plan on driving this when I actually need the all-wheel drive, and in the ever rare situation when I can't fit all of my crap in the trunk of a sedan. I've never had that problem except once. Let's get this car on the cardboard, and then let's wrap up the video. Starting off under the hood, in terms of power, the V6 produces enough power to give us a 6 out of 10, a very healthy figure for a vehicle of this size. In terms of transmission, it is a 6-speed automatic, but unfortunately, I do leave room to dock points if the transmission is not tuned appropriately. And if I'm being honest, after thinking about this a little hard, it seems like this transmission was really tuned for the 4-cylinder, in my opinion, because it just holds onto those gears what feels like unnecessarily long, which only goes to both hurt the fuel economy and stress the V6 even more than it needs to be. Again, it got up to 7,000 RPM. It shouldn't need to with the amount of power this thing is producing. It really shouldn't. And so I'm going to have to dock this a point and give it a 5 out of 10. In terms of drivetrain, while yes, my tester does have all-wheel drive, I only give it 6
if it's standard equipment, and it is not, so I have to give it a 4 out of 10. The 0 to 60 is fast enough to give us a 5 out of 10. And in terms of fuel economy, while yes, my car is particularly bad with it, according to the numbers though, it does give us a 5 out of 10, bringing us to a total of 25 out of 50. In terms of the weekend categories, which again is our subjective categories, I'll let you know. Styling, I'm personally a fan of it, but it's not the prettiest thing or the biggest thing to get excited about. I just like it because it's super easy to spot just because of how boxy it is. And so I'm giving it a 4 out of 10 for styling. Not offensive, but not like beautiful or anything either. Visibility, however, is excellent. In fact, this actually gets my best score yet on the board in terms of visibility. Every other crossover I've driven has had a compromise somewhere that I've had to dock so many points for, but not this car. It's getting a 7 out of 10. I can see very well out of this car. Handling performance, however, while it's not dangerous, it's not thrilling either. It's really basic, and I will note that the car does feel a little tippy in corners. Again, not dangerous, but yeah, you don't want to take corners fast in this thing. It's getting a 3 out of 10. Fun factor, the only points you can get for fun factor in this is just the V6 acceleration. Other than that, there's nothing to support it in this category, and it gets a 3 out of 10. And cool factor is no better. Obviously, this thing has a reputation for being a mom car, and well, as much as I like its unique design, I don't really think that gives it any cool factor points, and so I'm giving it a 1 out of 10, bringing us to a total of 18 out of 50 for the weekend categories. The daily categories, however, this thing does fairly okay, but it's not the best either. Starting off with features, well, yes, this is a fully loaded vehicle with the sunroof, heated seats. The infotainment system feels so dated and is so annoying to work with, along with the fact that there are so many things missing that modern cars have brought to the table that unfortunately now it's getting a 4 out of 10. Comfort is okay though. I wouldn't rate this at average. I rate it just a touch below, but it's not bad, so I'm giving it a 4 out of 10. Quality, however, is a little bit atrocious. While the fit and finish and durability of these materials may have held up well, this is an incredibly plasticky interior, and oof, yeah, it's getting 3 out of 10 for a quality standpoint. Practicality though, it's your average compact crossover, and so it gets a standard 6 out of 10. It's nothing remarkable, so 6 out of 10 it is. And finally, value. I wasn't initially going to score as high as I did, but the more I thought about it, I ended up thinking that yeah, this is going to be one of the rare instances where I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. Why is that? It's because these things go for super cheap on the used market. You can pick up so many nice examples of these for so cheap. You can start getting Denali's with all-wheel drive at $6,000. A fully loaded Denali in nice condition for $6,000. I mean, it's not like it's rusted out or anything like mine. I mean, you can go further south and find one in a nicer condition for $6,000, and it's fully loaded. And the prices only get better if you don't go for the rare Denali's. And so because you can pick these things up for so cheap and they come so fully well equipped, it's really hard for me to argue the value proposition. And so I'm giving it a full 10 out of 10. This car truly is an excellent value, bringing us to a total of 27 out of 50 for the daily categories. Add them all up, we get a grand total of 70 out of 150, which is 1 point above the second generation GMC Terrain, funny enough. Although, despite that, the newest GMC Terrain did score 79. That was a fully loaded Denali example that I had, while the other two Terrains that I have put on this list are both SLTs, so it's not a totally apples to apples comparison. But nonetheless, if the first generation GMC Terrain scored better than an equivalently spec second generation GMC Terrain, that says something, and that primarily comes from the fact that the engine performance really was hurt by the 1.5 liter 4-cylinder if you take a look at the under the hood score and a few other various categories as well. It holds its own in the daily categories quite well, but I still think the initial first generation GMC Terrain is a better value overall. Again, this is a crossover. I'm not typically one to buy these things. The only reason I bought it was because I was after something that had all-wheel drive and ground clearance, and this thing has that. But even though I was only looking for those two items, I am very well pleased with everything else that this car had to bring to the table. And as a result, if you like crossovers, which is not me, but is most people, this one's easy to recommend. So thank you for watching. Do me a favor and interact with the stuff below. Also, do me a favor and check out my Patreon page. I would very much appreciate that. This is the Random Alpha Drive, signing out.
Why's that? Well, let me show you. Because this is my new car. A crossover.